Hey y'all. So got a few minutes here before I need to go pick up my kids from youth group. So I thought I would do my video for the day real quick. And I wanted to talk about something somebody had asked in their membership questions. And that was, how can I homeschool if my kids won't listen to me? Totally valid question. Definitely hard to teach if somebody doesn't want to be taught or if they don't want to listen to you. And here's the thing, and this might be a little hard to hear. Homeschooling is an extension of parenting. It's really, and I kind of talked about this in one of the first videos I did, it's not some big fancy thing. It's not some big magical thing that you have to have all sorts of skills for. You're just teaching your kids, which you've already been doing. But there's definitely the possibility of a very different dynamic, particularly if your kids have been in conventional school already and they already kind of have this idea of what a teacher is and what learning is and what school is supposed to be. When you shift into that teacher role, sometimes your kids are going to have a hard time seeing you that way. They're going to have a hard time relating to you as their teacher. And one of the things that I think can help that is not trying to emulate school. You're not trying to do that anyway. At least that should not be your goal. You shouldn't be trying to do school at home. School at home is a thing, but it's basically just trying to recreate conventional school at home, and you are completely missing the point of homeschooling if you try to do that. So first of all, don't try to do that. Don't try to be a teacher, okay? Even if you have a teaching degree, you're not in this to be a teacher. You are in this to be a fully connected mom with your kid. You're in it to build relationship. And if your relationship is already strained, and this is kind of the other side of what if my kids don't listen to me, if they're not listening to you already as mom, then that means that your relationship is already on some rocky ground. And unfortunately, when you start homeschooling, it's probably going to make things worse, I'll be honest. That does not mean you shouldn't homeschool. What it means is that you need to get your relationship with your kid figured out. I read a super awesome quote today that said, all behavior is communication. So if your kids aren't listening to you, they're telling you something through that. They're maybe telling you that you're not consistent. Consistency has been a huge battle for me. I'm not a consistent person. I'm not a disciplined person in almost anything. And so consistency has always been extremely difficult for me to maintain. Maybe they're telling you that your method of communication doesn't work for them for whatever reason. There are lots of things that could be behind that. And in order to effectively and enjoyably homeschool, you're going to have to figure out the relationship piece first. There are two organizations I highly, highly, highly recommend. One is called Celebrate Calm. The other is called Positive Parenting. I do not believe in spanking. I don't believe in timeouts. I don't believe in punitive measures at all, because I don't believe in treating people disrespectfully, and I believe that hurting someone deliberately is a huge disrespect to them. So I believe in natural consequences. I believe in logical consequences. And those work really well if you are consistent, but you have to be consistent. So if you're telling your kids to do stuff and they're not listening, they're not behaving, they're not doing what you've asked them to do, it's because your inconsistency has shown them over time that they don't have to. If they procrastinate long enough, you'll do it yourself, or whatever. So then that's just one example of, what could be behind that not listening. So what you need to do is get that piece figured out first. And like I said, I highly recommend those two organizations. You can learn so much from them. They are fantastic. And, homeschooling can build an incredible relationship between you and your kid. You're going to spend so much more time with them. And depending on how you structure that time and how you approach your homeschooling, that time could be incredibly sweet and incredibly affirming for both of you and build a really, really strong bond. But a lot of it has to do with communication. A lot of it has to do also with respecting your kid for who they are and not trying to turn them into someone that they're not. I struggle with this big time. My 2 daughters are absolutely nothing like me, and it can be really hard for me to parent them sometimes because I just don't get them, or because I am trying to turn them into something I understand, into a person that I get, that I can relate to a little more. And the older they get, the more I realize I really can't do that. God has already created them to be who they're going to be, and it is not my job to try to change them. It is my job to learn how to love them as they are and help them to be the best version of themselves, not to be the version of themselves that I think they should be. And so I have had to really shift how I communicate, particularly with my 13-year-old, how I communicate with her, how I try to parent her, because I need to see it from her point of view. Your kid's perspective of your parenting, it's tricky because a person's perspective could be completely different from ours, right? We can be in an experience with someone and both of us perceive it completely differently. And that happens so often with parenting because obviously your little child who does not maybe have their logic brain completely formed yet, who's thinking purely from their emotions or purely from their hormones, they are going to perceive your tone, your words, your intent completely differently than how you meant them. And so, a lot of times you just kind of have to, Jesus, take the wheel. Like, all I can do is just say what I need to say here and trust that the right stuff's going to get through, and they're going to figure out that I'm not trying to be mean, and I'm not trying to be, the worst mom in the world, and I'm not trying to ruin their life, and blah, blah, blah. But if you have solid relationship with them and they know that you love them and that you're not trying to change them, and that everything you're doing is for their good, then over time it's going to sink in. But definitely the way that we communicate these things is going to have a huge effect on all of that. So if you are in a situation right now, and at least one of you is, because at least one of you has said, actually 2 of you have said something about this in your membership questions. So I know at least 2 of you are struggling with this right now. Excuse me. Then please know that does not mean you cannot homeschool. Yes, you can absolutely homeschool. But I think your main priority right now should be fixing your relationship with your kid, however you need to do that. So I will drop the links to those 2 organizations in the comments on this video. And focus on that first. Focus on helping your child to understand that you mean what you say. Focus on following through with what you say. Don't make threats that you have no intention of keeping. I'll be honest, I never have said things like, do this or you don't get to go to the birthday party. Because I knew full well I would never be able to keep my kid home from a social engagement. Because I knew it would kill them, because it would kill me. So I never said that, because I knew there was no way I was ever going to hold to that, So don't make threats that you're not actually going to follow through with. Don't set consequences that you're never going to have the guts to see through. Make your yes mean yes and your no mean no. Be consistent. But be loving. And help them to see that you are a safe person. Help them to see that you do what you do because you love them. And once you start to mend that relationship together, then you guys will be in a good place to start spending your whole day together. Because if that's not something you're doing right now, if your child is already in school, there's going to be a huge adjustment to that time when they come home and you guys are in each other's space all the time. And that's going to bring out whatever issues are under the surface. So better to deal with those now while you maybe still have some distance than to try to figure out homeschooling while also trying to mend your relationship. You know what I mean? But anyway, I will drop those links in the comments. Feel free to comment if you have any other questions or any other thoughts that you want to add. Please put those in there. I hope this was helpful. Hope y'all have a great night. Love y'all. Take care. Bye.